All I can remember seeing is people just scattering in different places and running in different places. And I was sitting with Sharon Tate, and she was talking to me, and I remember that I had absolutely, I felt nothing. I felt absolutely nothing for her as she begged for her life and for the life of her baby. And Jesus. I remember when we first went in, one of the people said, "Who are you?" And Tex said, "I'm the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's business."
It's important to note that Susan Atkins later on said that she didn't actually do the stabbing, that it was Tex, but I believe Susan the first time. I think this was after she was locked up for X amount of years that she changed her story.
The first set of neighbors as you leave 10050 Cielo Drive are Mr. and Mrs. Seymour Cott.
So Mr. and Mrs. Cott had dinner guests over that night, the night of 8/8, and those guests left around midnight. Now, according to Mrs. Cott, somewhere between 12:30 and 1 a.m., she does remember hearing 3 to 4 gunshots, but thinking nothing else of it, she went to bed. So about 3/4 of a mile south of the residence, there was a Westlake school for girls. And there was a counselor by the name of Tim Ireland. They were having an outdoor camp out, and he heard what he thought was gunfire around 12:40. They seemed like a long distance away, is what he said, north to northeast. And he remembers hearing a male screaming, "Oh God, no, please don't, oh God, no, don't." That scream, according to Mr. Ireland, lasted about 10 to 15 seconds. So Ireland lets another counselor know that, hey, this is what I heard. I'm going to go take a drive. And he took a drive around the area, not to the specific street or anything, because there was no way of really telling where that was. Circled the area and didn't see anything out of place. Here we are at Harvard Westlake School, currently in 2021, and you can see from the view that I got anyway, you can see right up to the hill where the Cielo location stood. And on a quiet night, this estimates it at 0.44 miles away, but on a quiet night up in those hills, you can probably hear pretty crystal clear as far as what was going on up there. So any kind of gunshots or probably even screaming, I could see them hearing that. At 9951 Beverly Grove Drive, a man by the name of Emmett Steele, he was awakened by his hunting dogs on or around 2 to 3 a.m. So here's an aerial shot showing 9951 Beverly Grove Drive and the distance it was from 10050 Cielo. It has it at 0.37 miles. Again, the quiet night, and it's not going to be a problem to hear the commotion going on up there. In front of 2175 Summit Ridge Drive, there was a Bel Air patrol employee named Richard Bullington. He called it in at his headquarters to an Eric Carlson, who then called it into the West LA Division of LAPD at 4:11 a.m. According to Bullington, there were 3 shots that were spaced a few seconds apart. When the call went into LAPD, the officer remarked, "I hope we don't have a murder. We just had a woman screaming call in that area." And in this one here, you can see it was 0.77 miles away from the 2175 Summit Drive address to 10050 Cielo Drive. Again, close, quiet hills. You're going to hear things. At 4:30 to 4:45 a.m., the LA Times paperboy pedaled his bike up Cielo, and that's pretty steep. But he pedaled his bike up Cielo, and he did notice what he thought to be phone wire draped over the gate, as well as the yellow bug lights still on the side of the garage. He puts the paper in the mailbox and leaves. At 7:30 a.m., Seymour Cott went to retrieve his paper and noticed the phone wire was down as well, hanging over the side of the fence, and also the light on still on the outside of the garage. So apparently the light being on in the daytime at 10050 Cielo Drive, that light on the outside of the garage is always off. So when it was left on, more than a few people noticed the difference. So at this point, the killers went back down the hill, jumped in the vehicle, and headed up Benedict Canyon, where they then made a right on Portola Drive. Portola Drive is extremely narrow street, so they pull up to 9870 Portola Drive, get out, and start hosing off at this hose spigot that's in the yard.
Now, according to the testimony of Linda Kasabian, when they went up Portola Drive, they made a U-turn and came back down. They got out to use the hose, and first the woman that lived there came out, asking questions. Who are you? Warning them that her husband was a deputy, and they just said they just wanted some water. So
it must have been about 1 o'clock. I heard the sound of running water. So I jumped out of bed and grabbed the flashlight, and I went downstairs into the basement, opened the garage door, thinking that something had gone wrong with the plumbing. There was nothing wrong with it. I couldn't see any water of any kind. And then I heard voices on the street outside. So I went over, and here were 4 people standing. And of course, you know the exact place. Yes. Around the corner there. Well, I cannot describe the people except the boy was rather tall. The girls I hardly saw, except I knew one of them was short stature. So I put the flashlight on, and I said, "Just what do you think you're doing?" He says, "We're just getting a drink of water, and we're sorry to disturb you." Looking over the people, I figured, well, they're just teenagers out on a Friday night. Well, that I couldn't say, but from what I would guess, they were all Caucasian. The girls started walking down. Then I looked down the street and I see a car parked facing west towards the main canyon, Benedict Canyon. So they started proceed to go down the street towards the car in front of me, and I followed them. And when they got to the car, he, I believe, opened the back door to the back seat, and the girls got in. So then the dome light was on, and I happened to look inside the car, and it was all messed up and dirty and so on and so forth. Things on the floor. So they closed the door. He got into the driver's seat. So in order to scare him, I acted as if I were going to reach for the keys. And that minute, he stepped on his starter and he took off before he closed down the street.
And they made a right. Now the drive from the Cielo address to the Portola Drive address, where they used the hose, shows it being 1.9 miles away, give or take. And here we are on Portola Drive. As you can see, it's extremely narrow. If someone was coming down the street, we'd have to move for them. And it was right about in this area at this home here was where that hose spigot was. I can't really tell at this point where it would be now, or even if it's still there, but it was somewhere in this area is where Tex and the group stopped for water.